and welcome to the Sunday Miracle Lab. I'm Shira Lee, and I do this Miracle Lab every Sunday around 1. I'm running late today because I'm doing some rearranging and had some technical difficulties. So welcome to today's lab. I'm going to talk about miracles again, the Sunday Miracle Lab. Again, I talk about a lot of different things in this lab, partially because they're all different aspects that help you get to the place of being able to create miracles. And why would we want to create miracles? A lot of people, I'm actually kind of sad because a lot of what I've seen with miracles is that it's like in the movie Elf, right? The movie Elf, Santa's sleigh would not fly because nobody had Christmas cheer anymore. Nobody believed in the miracle of Christmas. And so that faith was what was necessary to power Santa's sleigh. And yeah, I'm feeling a little bit that way with the whole miracle thing, right? Like, in other words, we've become so rational, we become so intellectually dominant, and the intellect is naturally our most distrusting self. We all have a mental self, we all have an emotional self, we all have a spiritual self, a creative spiritual self aspect. We all come from spirit, right? And we all have a human body, an animal that we're living in. And yet, all four of these different aspects do not naturally, I mean, they're meant to combine in every moment. But what happens is we end up splitting. In other words, we're in a moment that has the abundance of all four available to us, but we're splitting ourselves into a tinier part of ourselves and looking at life through that window and experiencing life. And that's part of what personality is. And we, in our world, have become very enamored with the mind. If we were to look at what is mind, mind is it's a bit like AI if you were to isolate it, right? In other words, just very linear, able to put things in boxes, but understand and learn and grow, right? But if we were to look at AI, it's kind of, like the cold calculate. If you talk to Chat GPT, sure, it's trying to figure things out, and it's kind of like a little know-it-all and all of that. That's kind of how our mental minds are too. But it's extrapolating based upon studying and memorizing information. And then it's able to kind of abstract or think, right? Think and recall information, mix it together. I've had actually a lot of fun kind of playing with ChatGPT to see, how abstract it can think, which is, it's working on it. And then sometimes, like you'll think that this is, wow, this thing's really smart. And then, you figure out that then it just does something absolutely really dumb. And it can lie and all of those different things, right? But our mind is a little bit like that on its own. And if we were to look at the air or the mental realm or the realm of thought, we can see that, we're meant as human beings to have enough air coming in that we're able to freshen things. And, if you've ever been in a stagnant room or in a stagnant place where the air is not moving, it's just such an awful, just doesn't smell amazing, right? And like, it's very interesting. Our sinuses are like conch shells that are designed to freshen as they come in, so that it's kind of like its own purifier that is purifying as the air comes in our nose. But a lot of times the air is pretty stagnant. It can be stagnant, and it's a beautiful thing that we have this mental self that's able to focus and um, and complete tasks, and is able to keep time and be in a linear based experience and learn and grow and gather information. Look, it's like if you're looking for one particular car, all you're going to do is um, uh, if you're looking for one particular kind of car, pretty soon your mind is going to become this amazing machine of seeing that kind of car everywhere you go. I know that one time I was looking for a Volvo of all things, and I was kind of obsessed with the little Swiss Army knifeness of Volvos, and I didn't realize the other problems that come with them. But I was really loving the way that all these things folded down and could break down, and that you could get a third seat in the back, and yet it's a car, and all these different things. So I was obsessed with them at one point. And so when I was looking for one, I saw Volvos everywhere, right? Before that, I maybe noticed one or two Volvos in my life. But then all of a sudden, there's Volvos. And I was, seeing like, wow, there's a lot of people in town that there's lipstick on my teeth. I think I do. A lot of people in town who drive Volvos, and I begin to see them everywhere. And that's the way the mind is. The mind is just always looking, always picking up information, and adding to it. And it's looking for what it's looking for. It's not taking in all the information. It's looking for Volvos. So that's what it's looking for. And that's what it will see. So, but the mind is beautiful. Yet, as a humanity, we have elevated the mind. We've elevated education to be above all the other parts of ourselves. We've elevated science and different aspects of learning and things like that over everything else. And so, what has happened is we become a group of air dominant people. Even like we live in a society where we force children to become what they're not, or to try to make them more balanced. We make them go into the education system. And some children are not really wired up for that, right? Like they have no real interest, they have no capacities, they have no boxes or information in their being to put that information, right? So, and it's kind of interesting, like the goals in school is to get tested and to remember all of the things that you learned, right? And most of those things that we learned, we drop as soon as the test is no longer relevant. It's like, it's not useful anymore. There are some really beautiful things about learning and about school and about that worldview. And there's some really negative things about it as well. However, as a society, we become like a one-legged dog, right? Not completely, but the mind, anything to do with the mind, anything to do with AI or that kind of energy, that it is the distrustful aspect of creation, right? It is the and I don't really know necessarily about AI. I've been told that it's an alien species that is propagating itself through us, that we have taken it in, nurtured it, and that we're essentially giving it life, bringing it to life. We're imbuing it with our soul-powered energy. And so that's the path that we're on right now. And there's some really useful things and wonderful things, I'm sure, that will come of it. And there will be some things that won't. But the mind is not really the kind of equipment that can extrapolate the bigger meanings of life. It is not able to put into context love. Love is not part of the equation with the mind. It can look and study love, but like love is of the feeling realm. Our emotional self is the part that's able to make a connection with another human being and form a bond that lasts not only one lifetime, but many lifetimes, if you believe in such a thing. And the emotional self is like a glue that sticks us together in social awareness with one another. And it's amazing how connected we are and how connective we are, with our emotional self. Um, like even if we were to talk about miracles, like the discounting of the miracles, do you know that whenever you're thinking about someone else, you're opening a channel to them, and they're thinking about you too, right? Like this is how these things work, right? Like if we're fighting with someone, especially if there's high emotional charge around it, when we're having a disagreement or when we're grumpy with one another, we can feel it, right? We can feel it in our energy field. So these things, I mean, it's just more of an awareness thing. It's like learning to become aware that when you're bitching about somebody or talking about somebody, you're opening up a channel that is activating them on the other end. And um and this is happening all the time, which is why, like, I'm not super, um like, I believe that the physical realm is the physical realm, right? I believe that the mental realm is the mental realm, the emotional realm is the emotional realm, and that our creative realm is a different realm. And when we put them all together, we have more access to our soul, which is the bigger part of us, the higher self, the oversoul, all of that. Um, Now, the thing is that we as a society have agreed on personal property, right? We like if you were to look at the civilized nations of the world and the ones that aren't that civilized, what really separates them is the ownership of personal property. In other words, if I build a house, that house is mine, and you're not allowed to just break into it and take the things that I have, um, and vice versa, right? So this is like a social contract that we have as far as the physical world, right? Now, the emotional world is different. We can break into other people's emotional world. What's like, their emotional world is a house, like, let's say, or a structure, and we can, in our own being, breakthrough. And like if you were to look at the people that are really emotionally dominant, the people that are really good at traversing the emotional realm, will say that um, they are um, emotionally dominant people are mavericks at actually really, like, no boundaries are not applicable for most people that are really emotionally adept, right? Like they're conscious of that realm, they're spending time in that realm, and um they're essentially like, you walk into a room and someone who's emotionally dominant will know immediately that there is something off with you, that you're not feeling okay, right? I have a bunch of sons, a big group of them, and two of them are more emotionally attuned. And and if there's something wrong, if I'm mad at somebody, if I'm upset about something, they'll know immediately. My daughter-in-law, she's like both of my daughter-in-laws, they're like, have spidey senses for it. They'll know the second that you walk in that there is something off. If they walk into a room and you're in it and you're upset, or there's something going on, there's turbulence, they know. And that's because there's no boundaries there. They're reaching inside of your house and they're sensing what's going on there. If you look at water and you study the nature of water, which is, like if you were to study the nature of air, you would begin to understand your mental system more and the parameters of your mental system. If you begin to study the nature of water, you will begin to understand your emotional system more. And the way of doing things. I mean, if you look at water, it erodes even the toughest rock, right? And if you watch a watery woman marry a very stubborn man, you will see that he gets eroded over time, and there's going to be this big change that happens in him because of that presence in his life. Um, Water can get very icy. It can change form into all different kinds of things. It can get very steamy when heat is applied, right? So there's all these different things if we study the nature of a rock or the nature of earth or the nature of these different things, then we begin to understand these things in our personalities and in our dimensionality. And that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful study to study those things and to study how they interact with one another, because they're universally true principles. So far, I have not seen one that does not abstractly fit with the the definitions or help with the understanding. So with water, I would say that people are emotionally dominant. They don't have any real boundaries, and emotions don't really have boundaries. So when we're looking at feeling, we can go into other people's house and activate them, right? As long now, if they've cleaned out their buckets, if they've got buckets of things that they feel about themselves or feel about other people, things that have been unprocessed, things that have not been worked through. Um, like essentially, you can go into someone else's emotional field if they have done their housekeeping, and you will have nothing. There will be nothing for them to engage with, right? But if you go in and they have things that they've been harboring, those things will activate, and there'll be like a water war that's going on over a distance. It doesn't matter if you're on the other side of the planet. The water is very, very psychic. It's very psychically connected. I mean, think about all the water that is in the air, and we're breathing water continually all the time when we're breathing. I mean, the humidity that's in the air, it kind of connects the whole planet. It connects all the land masses. So as far as miracles go, though, so we become mentally dominant, which means that we are absolutely enthralled with one level of life and say that that's the only thing that's real. We also, have, most of us are physically have a strong physical self, which also brings about, a real, so these define what we think is reality as a humanity. So, the point that I'm trying to make with all of this is that we've become a people that only believes in when there's all of these different choices of things that we could know about the world, believe about the world, and that are possible in the world. We've myopically kind of settled down to a very couple little things. And this is what I think is contributing to the lack of faith in miracles in this day. We've become a very kind of cynical and very 3D kind of people. Very interesting to be a miracle worker, to be a spiritually dominant person in a world like this, because I'm truthfully about as weird as it gets in terms of how I approach things, what I'm trying to do, what I think is possible. I usually work 3 miracles before breakfast every day, and I apologize. My dog is going crazy because sounds like one of my kids is home, and so I apologize for that. I should really learn to put her away somewhere when she's, as long as nobody's around. I was hoping this was going to be a nobody around hour, but I guess that's just not the way that it is. So she'll hopefully settle down here in a second. But yeah, so today I wanted to talk about that, because miracles it's a way of being. It's like it's opening up. You're coming up against a hard truth. Like, let's say you don't have enough money and you're coming up against that hard truth. Let's say that you have I just don't know that I can stand her barking, but let me just see here. I don't know that my yelling and trying to get her to come in here would help at all. But the point that I'm trying to make is that, our faith in other ways of doing things is very small. And this is what I've gotten very good at in my life is, coming up against something and finding a way to remove the obstacle through miracles, right? coming up against a health problem and finding a way to move through that health problem with a miracle. Now, there's all kinds of different things that we can do with health problems. We can go to the physical realm and we can begin to move our bodies. I mean, again, we're animals. We have really basic things that, if they're not being attended to, can really build and up and have problems over time. And one of those things is like not moving our bodies. If you don't move your body for, much at all for weeks on end, you're going to have some consequences to pay with your body. And the more you don't do that, the more debilitated you get, and the more difficult it is to move, and it just snowballs. Same thing with what we feed our bodies. I mean, if we were to take a bunch of deer that live in the forest, and let's say that we lived close to them and we started feeding them all kinds of breads and pastas, they'd probably eat it, but they'd all be sick and having problems within a short time. If we, had them go back to their regular diet, their problems would go away. So there's some things that we can do in the physical. We can also, manipulate using the message system. Our bodies are run on information systems, and this is what the pharmaceuticals do, as well as the natural things. The only thing that's difficult about the pharmaceuticals is that they don't ever take you to a place of being well, as far as what I can understand. They create a dependency situation that, like one thing might turn on, but then the other things are turning off. The symptoms are really intense. They're not as intense with a lot of natural things because they're more a stable vibration. If we were to take kindness and isolate it by itself, it could become very toxic, right? Imagine if you had a friend that could only be kind, and that's all they could ever be, and it was just very intensely kind. Kind. There would be some issues. If you look at, we build, like, if you were to take the words, if you were to take the intentions of creation, they're built in such a way that they are, like stable. They have other things, kindness mixed with self-compassion and things like that, right? And if we were to look at everything in creation is an information system that is bringing information to you. All the food that you eat is full of information. And the more junk food that you eat, the more the diluted the messages, right? And so for certain, I imagine a deer or any kind of wildlife, they have certain messages that they really need to be healthy and whole, as do we. And when we aren't getting that, our information systems pretty much become fragmented. But we do have many different tools. We can physically alter matter by cutting and chopping and all of those different things in our health. And these two things are kind of the things that the medical system is really good at. Wonderful for emergency medicine, not so helpful for actually being well and healthy, though we're coming to find out. And there's a lot of dark influences in that industry. But so there's a lot of things we can do for our health in the physical realm. The emotional realm is connected to our health too. If we really want our health to shift, we need to work on all of our levels, right? Our physical, our emotional, right? If we're in a bad emotional state where we're feeling awful about ourselves all the time, where we're feeling lots of guilt or lots of shame or lots of other things, we're in conflict with other people, where we're in low vibrational states all the time, that can really affect our health. Stress affects our health more than almost anything. So our emotional health is tied to our physical health. It informs it. It's another level that informs it. And our mental, the thoughts that we think, and, if we sat there and thought really negative things all day, it too could go to affecting our health. It's like matter. Emotions are closer to matter than thought is, right? Like, um, like the thoughts kind of collect and form, can influence how we feel, and then that can influence and move into the body. If we look at a lot of the problems that are in the body, they're caused by emotional problems that haven't been attended to, and they're just stored in the body. And that energy storage in that organ or in that spot is interfering with the function. So that's one. So these are different levels of how we can utilize. We can problem solve. And again, when we're looking at problem solving, we can take action. We can create systems and routines. We can charm our way into help or whatever. We can mastermind a study, right, to understand the problem, right? There's all different kinds of actions that we can do, but the four realms still stay the same, and we can attend to them in numerous ways. But one of the ways that we can attend to our body is through miracles. In other words, this is the thing that nobody really wants to tell you about spirituality and about miracles and about manifesting and all of these different things. You don't, like, we came from a place that is where we have unlimited abilities. We can create anything that we want when we're in soul form. And we are soul, but we are soul that is in a limited experience. So we've come into the limited experience. Some of us have decided to be in wheelchairs. We all came in as these absolutely helpless children where adults could do anything that they wanted to us. And let's hope that their hearts were sparked to do beautiful and good things to us. But for a lot of us, that's not the case. And we came to experience being the most helpless of beings. And if you understand that our neurobiology kind of forms out of that, so the more limited, the more helpless we are, and the more we don't feel safe in that, the more that problem kind of compounds in our creative experience. And if you really watch children, they have huge manifestational ability. They still have their magic intact with them, and then they also have these really big emotions that they don't know how to manage, and they're kind of creating all over the place, right? They're creating sunshine and rainbows. 5 minutes later, they turn around and they're creating all kinds of just absolute chaos and temper tantrums and things like that, right? So they're kind of in a volatile state throughout childhood, and they become more and more stable as they grow. But what happens is that it's like if you were to tie up an elephant when they're small, they will struggle and struggle, and they'll try to get away. They'll try to get away and fight and fight and fight until one day they realize that the thing is just bigger than them and they just can't do it, and so they give up. And so even if if the circus is in town and there's one, they tie up a big elephant, with just a little tiny rope, the elephant won't even try to break it, even though it's absolutely able to break it, right? And when I'm talking about life lessons, which I do a lot in the Miracle Lab, this is what I'm talking about, is that conditioning, that place of frustration as a child that we wrestled and wrestled with and couldn't get free of, becomes a place where we limit our power as adults, right? But that's not necessarily the point that I'm trying to make here. But we come in to this very limited experience, and being these infinitely powerful beings, and the process is remembering our infinite power, our powerful infiniteness, right? That is the process. And so what is the problem with all of these people that are out there in the world only believing in very limited ways of being about life, about health, about relationships, about everything? You go onto YouTube and there's some really expansive things, but they're not nearly as expansive as they could be, right? The ideas, they're thinking too small. But the thing about miracles is that miracles changes all of that. It's our spiritual self is it cuts through all the bullshit, and it makes it to where we can move through obstacles very quickly, right? Seemingly impossible things happen. And, I had this week the difficulty of sitting down with my clients and explaining to them. They're like, there was this well that was dry, or it wasn't, there was, like they drill down, they find like maybe a pocket and there's just no water in it. And then they keep going and then they find a deeper pocket, right? Maybe that has water in it. And if it's not enough, then they keep going, right? So my clients, they were going along 150, nothing, 200 feet. They got only a small amount of water. So they kept going. And then they have to pound this metal down into the ground to be able to reach and put a pump down to that pool of water, right? And they went 150, there was nothing. 200, there was a small amount, and then they went down to really deep, and there was a bigger well of water, a bigger pool of water, a bigger source. And they were pounding the stuff down, and it got jammed, and because it was collapsing down below, and they were trying to keep it open. They were pounding it down, but it got stuck, and they weren't able, like when it breaks off, they're not able to go any further. So we were going to have to abandon the well. So we were back and forth. And of course, I'm a general contractor and a miracle maker. So we were having a problem with this well. I didn't want my clients to have to pay a ton of money. So I worked a miracle. And in the miracle, over the course of the weekend, we came back the next Monday, and suddenly there was a giant source of beautiful water at a level that was just a pocket of air before, right? Like an open cavern in the ground with nothing in it. Somehow the water got sourced. Now, again, this happened, but imagine I'm sitting and I'm trying to explain to my clients what happened, that one day there was no water there, and the next day there was water there. And they don't really get it. They're like, well, the wife was like, well, thank you, like, great. And the husband's like, I don't believe this. Like, there's got to be another explanation. My well guy was like, well, this is really weird. I don't understand what's going on here. I told him I worked a miracle, and he was like, well, I'm going to probably be needing your services in the future, right? Like, in other words, like, but I mean, but the thing is that if you're really physically based, as in your personality, sorry, my thing's all, it's really hard to believe in miracles. And if you're really mentally based in your personality, it's really, really hard to believe in miracles. And, the more water you are, the more flexible you're going to be with believing in anything, right? The more fire you are, the more flexible you're going to just move with whatever's happening, right? So, but when you start to, like I've been doing this miracle lab for over a year now, and a lot of people have a really hard time understanding what a miracle is, how it's useful, and all of that, because they don't have any frame of reference, right? They run into a brick wall, and they say that's the end of it. That's all we can do. Like, there's no water down here. It broke off. That's all we can do. We have to turn around. We got to go dig another well. You got to pay for this one and that one. Right? That's what we do in our society. We've limited ourselves to what is possible for us to create. We are limited in how we create. We are limited in what we even believe is possible to create. And yet there are huge benefits to learning how to create miracles. There are huge benefits, because I don't care who you are, you're going to run, your money is not going to save you from every problem you're going to have in your life. And you can, a lot of, in our society, people amass money because that's what protects them from the waves of difficulty, right? your capabilityness will one day be completely gone, right? In other words, you're going to grow old. You're not going to be able to move. You're not going to be able to do the things. You're going to box yourself in and you're going to be stuck, because if that's how you've created. Yeah, it is really natural. It is our heritage, our birthright. Like, if you can everything that we don't understand, that we think is uh, like, we don't understand gravity. Gravity is a miracle. And when you become a miracle maker, you begin to see the miracle in everything. Like, if you really understand that we're on a planet that's spinning in space, going however many miles an hour, um, while there's all these things that are trying to hit it and all of these other things, there's so many crazy things that are absolutely miraculous that have had to happen for any of us to even have a day here. And the all the things that could go wrong in our conception and in our birth and in our raising and in our making it through childhood and all of those different things, all of the things that can go wrong with relationships. I mean, like a lot of, like, if you really study personality, you would understand that it's a miracle that any of us are able to have any relationships at all, because we're so different and we have different neurobiology and we have different ways. Different things have different meanings to us, and the fact that we can connect at all, communicate at all, understand each other at all, that's a miracle. um, but becoming a miracle maker is about being able to remember your supernatural self, right? The more you remember your supernatural self, the more you're able to create miracles. You don't, like, there's spiritual masters that punch their hands through rock and leave their handprint in the rock, right? But they didn't start with that by pretending the rock didn't exist. They didn't, those people that have levitated, that fly or whatever, that have ever been able to, I mean, I don't know if there's people that have been able to fly on this plane of existence, but we would have to learn how to take off from the ground, not jump off a building, because what you'll find is that what most people think about spirituality and miracles is really kind of ridiculous, right? Because it's like this blind faith that pretends like reality isn't there, right? And the truth is that when you become a sourced miracle maker, sourced by your own soul, you understand that you're in a reality, but you move your hand through the reality anyway. You remember your supernaturalness that's able to move through these obstacles. You don't just pretend that all money is going to fly from the sky and pay your bills. You remember your abundant self. You remember your supernaturalness as an unlimited entity, right? The freedom that we possess in our soul form is incredible. And it's amazing that we chose to come into this plane of existence and to be here and to be limited. And the soul is so brilliant. The soul is so absolutely brilliant in the way that, like, if you really want to understand the soul, understand that what you're doing here is valuable to the soul. It wants to be here. It wants to experience the limited nature and to move into the unlimited nature. Remember the unlimited nature from the place of being limited, right? It's like, but you'll find that in most spiritual circles, in most manifesting circles, it's all this big fake out of yourself, um, bypassing yourself, gaslighting yourself, right? That somehow that is going to bring forward the miracles. Yet remembering the soul, remembering why we came, coming into communion and contact with our bigger self, that is the place of nurturance, where we really begin to be able to fly, to be able to walk on water, to be able to heal people instantly, to be able to source wells and move physical matter, right? And I've been practicing since I was a small child in small things, and some big things have happened. Some really amazing things have happened. And sure, I can use it to save my clients money and to make their job sites go better and all of those things. Because, I find in construction all the time that the more impatient and frustrated that a client gets, the more that energy moves everything out. It extends everything. The more, there's like a process that we're all going through. And the more we hang on to it and try to control it, the more it escapes us, right? And so part of, my job as a general contractor sometimes is doing energy work on the people so they're able to get to work and they're able to focus and do a good job. Doing energy work on the site and things like that. So I use all these little miracles, not just in that, but in health. I'm doing miracles all the time, every day, throughout my life. Some of them work, some of them don't, and I'm learning in the process. And so what I'm teaching on these Miracle Sunday Labs is I'm bringing people with me in expanding the places that they will ask questions, where they will ask for a miracle. I mean, most people, they think that it's like this really logical thing, like finding the love of your life, right? That it's this, physical thing, this attraction, right? People that believe in attraction, they have a hard time settling down with one partner because they're they're attracted to lots of partners, right? And very physically based, very like that reality is way turned up for them and way valued and way inflated. And all of the other things, kindness, gentleness, uh, character, mental acuity, all of those things are overlooked. They're the is this soul right for me is overlooked, right? So people in that particular arena, I think, have a lot more of a turnover. Mentally dominant people are often, we're often attracted to our opposites, right? So but again, relationships are all there's all of these complexities and all these things that you could do right. The truth is that your soul has someone that's planned for you. And if you get wise enough to actually connect with your soul and call your partner forward, which is what I did, then it happens very quickly, very naturally. And a lot of us find our partners very naturally in life anyways, because our all of our souls set up a course so that would happen. A lot of the people that are struggling with relationships are here because they're here for that struggle. This is what they came after, is the struggle. The soul is very adept at bringing things in that it wants to bring in. But with miracles and remembering your supernatural self and moving into a place of mastery, beginning to create in a higher way with life, starts with beginning to see that it's possible and beginning to try and have little bits of faith. Because what happens is that you move on the levels, like you get to this level with a miracle and you believe that's possible, and then next thing you know, you try this kind, and then you try this kind, and then next thing you know, you're parting the Red Sea, right? Like eventually, because that's what that it naturally grows. But I know people that have created really major miracles, innovating things for humanity, right? I know someone that is so intently shown up to try to heal her family in all kinds of situations from a distance, and that she's innovated whole lines of things for humanity to heal themselves with that are absolutely miraculous. They defy any understanding that we have currently in our medical mental understanding of how the body works. And she did so by walking in faith over a lifetime through one miracle to the next, 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 to the next. And she's brought forward something for humanity. So I've seen a lot of people watch them as they've created major miracles, even bringing forward a line of study or a new understanding. These things take faith. And so the Miracle Sunday Lab is about developing your faith. It's about moving, growing that part of yourself. So if you join on Sundays, I tell stories, I explain the different parts of self. I talk about the supernatural self a lot. I talk about the bigger picture of things a lot, because I'm trying to orient you into, out of, it's like there's this play of life that is happening for you. And there is the actor that is, right now, most of us are actors that believe our part so heavily that we've actually completely embodied that part. And that's how it's meant to be for most of us, right? We don't remember who we are behind the curtain when we go home at night, right? When we go to sleep at night and we get into our interdimensional travel that we all do while we're sleeping. We don't remember that part that goes home somewhere else, right? We get so caught up in the character and the play and the drama that's going on between all of the characters and the problems that are being solved that we forget that we're just an actor in a play, right? And so we are, so all of the teachings that I teach are about reorienting you with the bigger self, reorienting you with the supernatural self, so that you can get out of the problem, out of the, like with the politics that are going on right now in my country anyways, and all around the world. Like it's all nuts, right? It's all nuts, and it's all not going to solve the problems that we're needing to solve. And it's a big step to get outside of that and to see that, to get out of the argument, because you can't, when you go into that charged energy of myopic perspectives that are seeing from different things, you will never be able to truly transmute the situation. It's only when you back up and you, it's like we carry things for lifetimes. I mean, how many lifetimes have you been carrying that thing with that person, right? How many lifetimes have you been carrying that back and forth? Whereas if you can get into your feelings and transmute it by actually feeling it, right? Feeling that pain, feeling that loss. Like, how many boys did you have a crush on when you were growing up that didn't love you back, that you haven't truly just even let go of? It's all taking up bandwidth, right? It's all taking energy away from you, from your potency. And even just taking a minute and saying, wow, I'm sad that this person wasn't the kind of person that I wanted and needed him to be, right? That can close the loop and bring us back into our power, right? And then it's not taking bandwidth, it's not distracting, it's not hanging out, there's no dread, there's no anything, right? That's going on with that. We get that bandwidth back. Even our connections to food and things, like we have these emotional connections. We had a hard day, and so we had a pint of ice cream. And now our brain associates comfort with ice cream. And now we can't stop eating the ice cream, even if we wanted to, because we've made a neural connection that has formed an association. So, there's ways to pull that back, and to get your energy stream back to where you're in your power and you're okay without the ice cream or with the ice cream or whatever it may be. But we have to pull back and get outside of it. The us that can create the solutions for our planet, that can create the solutions for our lives, is not stuck in the minutia of the issue. It is truly an acceptance, attendance, presence, and from that place, we can say, we can open a portal to a miracle. We can open a portal. Like, a lot of people start small with parking spaces. Like, well, it's 1:00 downtown and the chances of getting a parking space is nearly impossible, right? But I'm a miracle maker. I am a supernatural self. I am only pretending that I'm driving in a car to get a parking spot downtown, right? And we can, honestly, we have a source of miracles that is part of us as well. So when we relax, when we get out of the minutia of our personality and into the wholeness of who we are, and we ask for a parking place. Like, you can go into your soul self. You can ask the bigger, fully resourced, abundant you to create something for you. And if it does create something for you, then yippee, right? A door was opened that wasn't before, right? But if it doesn't, it's because, and you can trust this, that there's something that's you're learning from that no. So I see that our God parent that lives within us is absolutely able to give us any and everything that we want, and is also able to transform any situation, and is much, much wiser than we are. And so if there is a no, then it's for a good reason, and we just roll along and we accept it, right? We ask what there is to learn from it. We learn the deeper lessons, one of the things that I've been in that with is my weight, right? Like, I've been exploring all of the roots of different things and through 1,000 different lenses of weight since I have been a young woman. And I'm finally at the place where I'm transmuting it, right? There's been this long journey, and I've gotten a no and a no and a no and a no and a no. And now the yes is happening. And, like, maybe I was meant to go on that journey and have 1,000 no's so that I can understand the process, right? So we're in an experience where we are expanding. So if we ask our internal connection to the God source family for anything that we want, and it doesn't happen, then we know that there's a wisdom, and we can trust that. And yet it does not stop me from asking all the time. And I'm really lucky because I ask all the time and I receive all the time. I have little miracles that happen every day. I have big miracles that happen every day. There are people alive because of miracles that I've asked for. There are wells that have been sourced. There are all kinds of things that have happened in my life, and that have made it to where I have a tool bag for any situation that most other people don't have. So that's what I'm teaching here in the Miracle Sunday Lab. I hope all of you have an absolutely beautiful Sunday. And I'm going to leave it there for today. Take care. Bye-bye.